Rosario.
I'm doing fine and working on my proposals for this year.
Perfect
good luck.
timing.
Oh,
We've
nice.
got great presentations for you today.
Hopefully we can help you some with that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, Lynn, I got your messages that we're live now. Welcome, everyone. I'm Liz England, and I'm the founder of the TESOL Career Path Development Professional Learning Network, the longest name of a organization. Thank you all for coming today. I am so happy to be here. I only wanted to greet you, tell you that I'm speaking to you from my son's house in Madison, Wisconsin, in the United States. And I am enjoying looking out the windows. The sun is shining in Wisconsin. It's not too cold today. In fact, it's quite hot. And I'm so glad to see everybody. I think we have at least 4 continents today, maybe 5. Welcome, everyone. And thank you for coming. We're going to learn so much today from Ethel and from Shirlaine. Linda Chu, I'm going to turn it over to you, who was our moderator for webinars. Linda.
Thank you so much, Liz, and thanks to all of you for joining us. We're happy to see all of these familiar faces. So we are very excited about our webinar today. It is called Writing TESOL Convention Proposals, What You Need to Know. And now is the time because we're all in the midst of writing our TESOL proposals. So very excited. We have with us Shirlaine Castellino, who is director of the IEP at Spring International Language Center in Littleton, Colorado, and part of our CPD PLN team. And then we have Ethel Swartley joining us. She's a teaching associate professor at International Education and English Language Department, University of Denver. And we are so fortunate to have these two who have oodles of experience with writing and reviewing proposals, and they're going to give us lots of tips. One quick comment before we move on. I just want to mention to everyone that we do have another webinar coming this Saturday, May 14th at noon Eastern Time. Please watch for the posters on that. That is with Beatrice Price, and she is going to talk about various leadership paths, another interesting topic. Okay, so back to our webinar for today, and I will turn it over. I think, Ethel, you're going to begin. Is that correct?
I can. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad that you're here with us. You've heard a little bit of an introduction for Shirlaine and I, but one of the reasons that we wanted to put this together, as Linda has already indicated, is that both of us have served as strand coordinators for TESOL, and I think Shirlaine's going to tell us a little bit more about that, but that has put us in a position of needing to review the proposals that come in for upcoming conventions, and we would like to just share some of our experience with you about that. So Shirlaine, do you want to tell a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Shirlaine, and Ethel and I, and actually Liz, we were the first when we started the strands for TESOL for proposals, and that was in the 2019. So we started working in 2018. I've also been a proposal reviewer for about 10 years now. So it's really interesting to see how it has changed so much. And that's what we're going to talk to you about today. Some of you may already have written proposals before, have been accepted. Others you're just starting, but this is a review for some and maybe a lot of information for the newbies who would like to start writing or submitting proposals. So today, this is what we want to do. The first one is how proposals are reviewed real quickly so that you know the process once you submit a proposal, what happens to your proposal. And then we will talk about factors that strengthen a proposal's chance of being accepted. And then the third one is how to prepare proposals for submission. And we will walk you through that worksheet as you look at the website, and then what do you actually see and what to do with that. So here's background information, statistical information that you might want to know. Only about 20 to 25% of proposals submitted are actually accepted. So even if you have really good proposals, excellent proposals, they might not make the cut. And so the other thing is the past TESOL 2022, there were about 600 in-person sessions and about 200 virtual online pre-recorded sessions. So that's just information out there for you to know. The strands, which you probably are all aware of, are really important in the submission of proposals. So these are focus areas where most of your proposals are funneled into. And so there are 13 strands that you really need to be familiar with unless you already know what your focus is, because that's where you actually submit. You're not just submitting to TESOL. You have to pick a strand to submit to. And we'll tell you later on how important that is, the choice that you have. So okay. So how are proposals reviewed? This is the general process of the proposal review process. The reviewers, for example, that's all done. In fact, May 6th was the deadline for if you want to review proposals. So strand coordinators and assistant coordinators are working to figure out, finalize who the reviewers are going to be. Once the proposals are submitted, which is in June 1st is actually the deadline. At the same time, the reviewers are being trained, and so that coordinators can assign them to specific reviewers. Then the blind reviews happen among all the different strands. Once the reviews are completed and they are scored and read, the strand coordinators give their recommendations to the CPC and the staff of TESOL, and they are going to finalize the schedule. So that's just what happens through the process. They use a system. Now it's Mirror Smart System, which is so much better than the system that we had, the Pricey, in the first 2 years of doing proposal reviews.
So we want to talk a little bit about some of the factors that strengthen a proposal. And what I'm going to do is walk you through the rubric that our reviewers use in evaluating the proposals, just so that you know what kinds of things they're looking for and maybe how they may be judging your proposal when it comes in. And I think that will help you as you're writing your proposal to maybe avoid some of the pitfalls that you might run into as we go. So the first criteria that the reviewers use in looking at your proposal is looking at the topic itself. Is the topic that you have chosen for your proposal something that is important in the field of TESOL right now? Is it something that's appropriate to TESOL, that's not, and to the audience that would be at the TESOL convention? So what we're really looking for is that this proposal is something that addresses a cutting edge idea or some groundbreaking information, a topic that is fresh and new in TESOL, that's current. You know, as many of us have been teaching for a long time, and it's easy to get into a rut and in the things that we have done forever are you know, working for us, but they might not be new things that people would come to a convention to see. When people come to a convention, they're really looking for fresh ideas for to see what trends are happening in the field. And so when the reviewers look at your proposal, they're asking that question. Is this a proposal that is groundbreaking, that's cutting edge, that's important and new in the field? So that would be the first thing that they're looking for. They are also looking at whether a proposal is based on current theory in the field, current practice, current research, or policies that are relevant to the presentation now. I know that adding citations to a 300-word proposal is challenging, right? When you're writing your description. And I just want to mention that I would not suggest that this, now Shirlaine, you may have a different way within your strand, but in my strand, we don't require that you have a full APA or MLA citation at the bottom, because that just eats up too much, too many words, right, in your proposal. We'd rather see what your proposal is about. But we do want to see that your proposal is connected to research in some way. So definitely include your in-text citations here. Definitely make references to current theories that you're reading about, you're hearing about in your field, but make sure that they are also very well connected to the topic that you are proposing. Sometimes we get proposals where someone has just stuck a citation in there and we're asking ourselves, well, what's the connection with this topic? What's the connection with this workshop? Make sure those connections are clear as well. So one thing I think that we maybe didn't mention in the rubric is that for each of these categories, you can get up to 4 points. It's a points rating system that we use. And a 4-point would obviously, that would be the highest. You'd want to be shooting for that all the way through. 4 points in this category would mean that the proposal has fully integrated your content with the relevant research, the sources that you're using. Through the use of citations or terminology can also help. So if you're using phrases that are current in the field that you're seeing in the research a lot, those can also help the way that the reviewers see or evaluate your proposal. The third area that we look at is whether this proposal specifies the outcomes of your session at TESOL. So are you, in your description, are you showing what the participants will walk away with? What new knowledge, what new skills, what new strategies maybe for their classroom they'll be able to get from your session? You want to specify those if you can. Not just what are you going to say, what are you going to teach, but what are the participants going to be able to do with this information after they've been to your session. So we want those participant outcomes to be clear and specific as much as we can. Again, it's a 300-word description that you're providing for us, so it has to be very focused on each of these things. The fourth area is that we want to see that this proposal provides a clear and coherent overview of your plan for the session. So we don't just want a list or a description of the things that you're going to talk about. We'd like to see how you're going to talk about them, in what order. If this is a workshop, we want to see that this workshop is going to have people interacting and working on some specific ideas, interacting or practicing some of the things that you're talking about. If this is a poster presentation, we want to see how are you going to present this visually so that people can see the ideas that you're talking about in your session. So thinking about, and we may talk about this in a few moments when we talk about the session types, but we want to be able to see that there's a connection between your session and the type of session that you've chosen and the plan that you have. We want to see that plan in your proposal. So how will you achieve the objectives, the outcomes that we've just talked about in the previous section? Is your proposal clear? Is it coherent? Are you giving us details about how you're going to cover that? Different sessions may be organized in very different ways, depending on the type of session that you've chosen. And so it's choosing that session type carefully to match the way that you would like to teach it is important. And then explaining how you're going to do that is a key point. If reviewers see a very general description and they don't see a clear outline or plan as a part of your description, that might, maybe only get a lower score, a 3 or a 2, which, as Shirlaine was talking about, when we see how few proposals really get accepted for the conference, that 1 or 2 points in each of these areas can really make a big difference in whether your proposal gets accepted. We're also looking at, I started to mention this already, but that to see whether the session type, the type of presentation you want to do matches the topic and the theme of your proposal. So we want to see that the session type is appropriate for the plan, the goals, and the delivery methods stated. This might be in terms of the time that's available in the type of proposal, the type of session that you're asking to do. It may be in terms of whether we think, if, you know, for example, if you're putting in to do a poster presentation at the conference, does it sound like the type of information that you're giving is something that can be presented visually to us? Is there a good match between those two things? In a little while, we'll talk about the specific types of sessions that we have and what maybe some of these appropriate plans or goals would be for those. But you want to be thinking about that because the reviewers are thinking about that as they look at your proposal. And then after the reviewers have thought about the session type, the style, the plan that you've put out, then they're looking for, they're making an overall recommendation based on what they have seen. They're looking for proposals that are clear, that are well written, that suggest that this proposal is going to be of professional quality. This is an international convention that you are putting in your proposal for, and you need to present yourself in such a way that it looks like you are really one of the experts on in the field. Now, I don't say that to intimidate you, because I presented at the convention for the first time when I'd only been teaching for 2 years. So it doesn't mean that you have to have years and years of experience, but you want to present your proposal in such a way that that you sound like someone who's going to be a strong presenter, that people are going to respect when they come to your session. So I definitely recommend that you have, if you're not a native user of English, that after you've written that proposal draft, that you have a friend look at it and maybe, you know, just check it for your grammar or those kinds of things.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very important for you to make a good impression with this, because the reviewers did not know you when they look at this. They don't know your experience except what they see in the description that you've turned in. They don't know what a fantastic teacher you are unless they see it reflected in your proposal. So Shirlaine, do you want to talk maybe about some of these factors that
Sure.
affect?
So the rubric and all those that Ethel was talking to you about, those are really the most important. But there are other considerations. For example, multiple presenters. If you are from international settings or underrepresented audiences within TESOL, we're actually going to look at your proposal more closely. In a sense, it's just a tip, you know, for viewers, because we really want to see a variety. We want to look at international presenters. We want to look at underrepresented audiences. And Ethel has mentioned correct and clear use of language. Even if the rubric doesn't say grammar, sentence structure, we really do look at that. It is, we are English teachers or ESL teachers. So we do get some proposals that are really like, oh, nobody has even looked at it. Then you get, you know, we won't recommend that proposal because you're not really showing us, you know, that you have thought of this proposal really carefully to be, you know, professionally presented. So proofread and edit before sending, because this indicates that you are likely to be careful and you'll be a clear presenter. First impressions do count because we don't know anything about you. And the willingness to change proposal type if requested. That's a new thing that happened just the past 2 years, where you can change paper to poster, workshop to presentation. And of course, the last conference, the virtual sessions, which we didn't have when we were coordinators, is also a new. If you have any questions, please just chat. And we can.
Yeah, there are some questions.
So now we're on the part 3, how to prepare proposals for submission. We cannot stress to you how important choosing the best strand for your topic is. It really is important. The reason is, if you're not in the right strand and we are reviewing and we have to like give your proposal, we say, no, wrong strand. Somewhere around there, your proposal is still being looked at by somebody and then given to the other strand, and they're already finished reviewing, they have to find other reviewers to look at your paper because you happen to just give it to the wrong strand. And it may have been so good, but somehow, sometimes it gets lost in that shuffle. So it's really important that you do that. Because once it's in the wrong strand, we don't review it. We don't score it. We just say, wrong strand, boom, give it to somebody. So, okay. So choosing the best strand for your topic is really very important. And this is Ethel's
Yes.
presentation type.
Yes, so Shirlaine's mentioned the importance of thinking about the topic that you have and which strand it might fit the best with. But it's really important, as I've mentioned before, that you choose the best type of session that you want you to do for your workshop or panel presentation, whatever it would be. I just wanted to go over what the different types of sessions are. When the strand coordinators receive proposals and receive our instructions from TESOL, the main office, we are given a certain block of time or a certain amount of time in the convention schedule that we can fill. You can see that these different types of sessions have different lengths of time. If you want to have your best chance, I would say maybe your best chance of being on the convention program, if you've not been to TESOL before, I would highly recommend maybe that you put in for a poster session or a teaching tip, especially if you haven't presented at these types of conventions before, because even though the poster sessions here are listed as 1 hour and 45 minutes, those actually, we can actually usually take a lot more of poster sessions for the convention than other types, because that 1 hour and 45 minutes is really just you standing with a visual representation of what you'd like to present, and people are coming and going. It's in a big hall. We can have, I don't know how many people in that room, 50 people, right, presenting posters at a certain time. And so there are a lot more of those that we can accept. Normally, they don't take away from the overall amount of time that we're given as strand coordinators for the convention. Teaching tips, if you'd like to maybe do things in a little bit more structured way, but you're new as a presenter, a 20-minute, very short, very practical demonstration or summary of something that you do in your classroom that you think other people might want to try too. Those posters and teaching tips are very, maybe I won't say they're easy ways to get on the program, but they're easier than some of the others because they don't take as much time from the program at the convention overall. Workshops are super practical. Where you get people up and about and interacting with each other and trying out new activities. They're the kinds of sessions I love to attend when I'm just going to sit in on sessions at the convention because they're active and they're interactive. The drawback to a workshop is it's a 1 hour and 45-minute time slot out of the convention program. And if I only have a certain amount of time that I can give, can allocate, then I may not actually be accepting as many workshop proposals as other types of proposals, because I know that if this is, let's say, 2 presenters doing a workshop, that's only 2 people that can come to the conference at that time, right? That can come and present at the conference. And I want to get as many people on the convention program as I can, because that's good for TESOL. It's good for our learning experience if we're able to hear from a diversity of voices. So I would choose carefully before putting in a workshop proposal. If I wanted to, if I really feel like the best way for me to present is a workshop, then definitely I'll put that in. But if I think there might be another way, right, that it doesn't have to be as interactive, I might put in maybe for a presentation for example. It's they're 30 minutes or 45 minutes. I have a little bit better chance of getting on the program with that type because it's a shorter time frame.
Ethel,
Yes, go ahead, Shirlane.
there's a question in the chat by Beatrice. Why are workshops so long? Can you address that?
I think because, whenever you get a room full of, let's say, 35 or 50 people all interacting and working on a project, it's very hard to do that in a short time frame, right? Workshops are very practical, but they get people going with hands-on activities. And I think anytime you separate, as we know from our classes, right, when we separate our students out into groups, that's a much more time-consuming activity than me just giving them, a grammar lesson from up front. But it's also deeper learning, right? And so we do want to have some of those workshops in every strand on the program, but we want to make sure that the ones that we choose are very high quality and are very promising, that the proposals are very promising, that they're going to give people a very strong experience there.
In workshops, you're really expected to have your participants actively participate in what you want them. You're actually letting them work, and so
right,
they get something out of it. So it's not just a presentation where you're telling. You actually have a plan to show, and they have to do the activities that you do.
Excellent. Yeah. Panel discussions are another option. Here again, as Shirlaine mentioned, we're looking for sessions that have multiple presenters in them. Those usually are rated more highly than others because it means more people are going to possibly be able to get funding to come to the convention. And TESOL is about getting the word out to as many people as we can. And so if you have some friends that you feel like could all speak about a topic from different angles, a panel workshop, a panel session might be a good way of including them and their voices. The one thing I will say, and again, you want to have these very clearly outlined in your presentation description, your proposal description, is that what a panel is not is just a series of 4 people presenting, each for 10 minutes, right? A panel, we want to have interaction between those panelists. And so show how, in your description, show how those panelists will interact with each other and why you are including so many in the session. And then dialogues is another interesting one. It's only a 45-minute session, but where maybe you have an idea that you'd like to discuss with someone that is a little bit more in depth than a teaching tip, but a hot topic that you would like to see talked about more at the convention. If it relates to a particular strand, you can put in a dialogue proposal on that, where you're going to basically lead a discussion among the people that come to your particular session. So again, we'd be looking for things that are hot topics, current topics, new in the field of TESOL, not just a same old topic that we've talked about many times before. So did I talk about all of those? I think so. So let's go on.
Ethel, I want you to stop because there's a really good question on your
Great.
really good slide from Damon about the how the virtual and face-to-face proposal situation is addressed, because we have both, right? We have both kinds of conferences.
Yes. When I was a strand coordinator, I was not dealing with the virtual world at all. So I don't know, Shirlaine, do you know more about that, or do we have?
I'm not really sure. I think the virtual presentations limited to the presentation, not workshops, presentations and dialogues where, because all the virtual presentations are pre-recorded. The only one time that they'll have something is when they have a question and answer portions where the presenters are there to answer. But most of the time you just go in there, they come out at a specific time. So they're mostly presentation types and panel and dialogue.
Right.
For the And
I
if-
also do see a question from Aditi in the chat as well about workshops being 4 to 6 hours. I think what you may be thinking of, Aditi, are our pre and post convention institutes. So those are longer workshops. So sometimes, you know, an hour and 45 minutes is not enough time to really get people working on a new activity and learning experientially. But the pre-convention institutes or post-convention institutes would be an excellent place. Those are not reviewed by strand coordinators. They're reviewed in a different way. But if you have a topic that you think would lend itself well to a 4 to 5 hour or 4 to 6 hour, a half day workshop, I would put that proposal in through the it's a different proposal acceptance process. Liz, you may know more about this, but
yeah, that's all of what you said is correct. And it's not virtual. They are only face-to-face. The pre and post conference institutes 4 to 6 hours. The workshops that Ethel was talking about earlier at the top of her list there, those are within the convention week. And I know they are face-to-face. I don't know if they're virtual. Damon Anderson, you should send a proposal for the virtual convention.
Yes. Lamis, I also see your question, which is about how many people will attend each strand. And if I'm understanding your question correctly, I think you're not talking about the strand specifically, but about a session. And that will really, that really varies from session to session. And one of the things that when Shirlaine shows you the call for proposals a little bit later in our session today, you'll see a place where on the proposal application, you can specify the number of people that you would like to have in your session. So are you willing to do a large session with 200 people in it? Or would you really prefer a session that only has maybe 50 people in it or even 35, right? So those vary, and you can specify your preference on that. It won't necessarily, you aren't guaranteed that you'll be limited to a room of that size, but you can specify your preference on those. And that does make a difference too, in terms of how you think about the session that you're proposing. Are we ready to move on then, I think? And we can come back. We'll have some time for question and answers, we hope, at the end of the session as well. I just wanted to make a couple other comments about preparing your proposal for submission. When you look at the call for proposals on the TESOL website, and we're going to look at that a little bit in more detail later, you want to make sure that your proposal does not get disqualified because you did not fill in all the parts, right? You want to make sure that everything that TESOL is asking for in that proposal is included. So for example, you may see under a session type, you may say, well, I want to, I'm going to put in for a poster. That you'll see in most cases under the session type descriptions, it's worth looking at those because it will say something like proposals should include blah, 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 should include information about how this will be shown visually, will include information about types of activities that participants will engage in, will include, so you want to look for those proposals should include lines, because that's going to give you some good information about what you need to include in your proposal in order to have it rated more highly. You should also consider when you're putting in looking at the call for proposals, what is the teaching context that you're working in? Specify that. Are you teaching in an English as a foreign language setting? Are you working in an international setting where English is not the medium around you? You can specify that. Who is the audience that you are hoping to reach with this? Are you talking to researchers? Are you talking to elementary school or secondary school teachers? Are you working at the university level? Who do you want to have in your audience? You'll be asked to check a box that specifies that on the proposal form. And then what is the orientation of your session? Are you mainly presenting research that you've done? Are you mainly going to focus on classroom teaching practices and pedagogy? Are you talking about language policy at a national level? There is a wide variety of sessions at TESOL in each of these different areas, but that is something that you want to think about. What's your point of view as you're putting this proposal in? There is a checklist that you'll want to check to look at as you're writing proposals that has some very good tips in it. I'm not going to pull it up here, but it's just a place you can go down through the list and check. Yes, I included all of these things. And that way your proposal is not disqualified because it's missing something. I would also highly recommend that you not write the proposal in the proposal form the first time. I highly recommend that you maybe have the proposal form open and be creating it in a Word document, saving a copy for yourself, and then cutting and pasting it into the form. I have had so many people put in forms that did not come through completely because they were missing some part. If I felt like it was a very important topic, I've been able to reach out to that person, and they were, you know, hopefully, ideally, they have a document saved on their computer where they're saying, oh, I have my title, here it is, or I have my abstract, I did put that in, I'm sorry it didn't come through. I don't recommend that you write directly into the form and not save a copy for yourself, because things often get lost in cyberspace. And so that's just a pretty basic tip, but I definitely recommend that you do this in a Word document and then upload it later. You want to pay attention to the word counts, because what the system will do is if you are over that word count, it's going to cut off your description and we may not get the whole thing, which then makes us look and say, this doesn't quite make sense, or something seems to be missing here. That can count against you in that overall recommendation that the reviewers do at the end. So think about those word counts as you go, and then definitely make sure you submit your proposal on time. We cannot consider proposals that come in after the deadline. In fact, the system may not even accept them at that point. And consider your time zone, right? Proposals are accepted at Eastern time in North America. And so if it says 10 p.m., for example, that's going to be 10 p.m. in Washington, D.C. And so if you're thinking 10 p.m. in Beijing or wherever you might be, you might get into trouble, and you might not end up having your proposal even considered. So think about those things as you're proposing as well. So Shirlaine, let me turn this back over to you and have you walk us through. Do you want me to stop sharing?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So we're actually going into the way can I be sharing now?
You should be able to.
Okay. So, because I think some of you have asked, this is what it would look like once you hit that link. It says 2023 Convention Call for Proposals. If you're looking at, these are the ones that you're really seeing that are very important to look at. There is a worksheet, like what Ethel was saying, do it in Word form. This is where you would write it. So you start with a worksheet. When you do that, it would look like this. Can you all see that?
It did not open the second.
Oh, the second?
It won't open.
So maybe could you do a new share and choose that document?
Right.
That's
There we
good?
go. We see it now.
Okay, so it would look like this, where step one is you select a strand and you just X out the strand. You can only do one strand, by the way. If you submit multiple strands, that's it. It's got, it has to be just one strand, and then the context.
I think it's rejected if you put more than one.
Yeah, multiple strands, it won't even go into. This one could be, you can do 2, 3, all of the above even, depending on your context. A lot of times if you're doing English as a foreign language, you would also do English as an international language in a sense. So there's a big, and then this is the audience part where, and this is also important, Ethel talked to you about it. Are you pre-K, primary, secondary, IEP, adult ed, graduate, postgrad, ITA, and intensive English programs? Because know that as strand coordinators, when we're looking at it, we need to balance. So we need to have some, primary, secondary. We can't just, we may have a lot of really good proposals in academic English. We can't take all of those good proposals because there are other settings for our audience. And then there is a secondary audience also.
Shirlaine, can I just jump in here for a
Yes.
moment? I don't know exactly how this might have worked in your strand, but I know that in my strand, the content integrated approaches strand, we had different reviewers look at proposals based on this primary audience category. So we had reviewers who were specialists in primary and secondary education. We had reviewers who were more focused on adult ed or university level. And so we would send the proposals to different reviewers based on their expertise and how the proposal submitter checked these boxes. So I think that is a very important
That's
part.
the same for our strand. We made sure that when we were looking at reviewers, we had all different reviewers from all these different settings. And we did give, proposals that matched that for that qualification. Thanks, Ethel.
The other thing, you guys, how many proposals did you read in your strand, just to give the audience a sense?
Oh my gosh.
I want to say hundreds and hundreds, right?
Yeah.
We had about 200.
Yeah,
proposals
more,
in our
maybe.
Yeah, I
strand.
was thinking it was 175, 150 to 175.
For the
Liz and I
audience.
were personal and professional development. We would get 230, 240 proposals. And sometimes our time allotment is only 62
50.
or 70. So out of those, we
Maybe.
have to look at. That's why it's really important to be clear and to really follow. Are we ready to move on?
Thank you.
Session focus, this one, Ethel did a really good job telling you about, research and policy oriented. So you can look at that. And here are the session types, which one is most appropriate. And it tells you so you can do that. And then in step 6 is, do you grant permission to change the session type? You probably would want to say yes if you want us, because if you're saying no, then you're limiting us, to considering your proposal. And then granting permission to record your session. Yes or no, it probably doesn't. I don't know how much it matters if you do no. And here's the question from Lemis, I think, anticipated audience size. Do you want 300 people, 200 people, 100 or 51 or 50 or fewer? So you do have that information. And you can check that, and then you go to this portion, the title, the abstract, and the session description. This is the one that reviewers are looking at. All the rest of the others, the strand coordinators have access to those. But this is actually the part that is being reviewed and being scored, and that's why it's very important. This is where you look at the title, make sure it's only 10 words. The abstract, it tells you exactly the things that you have to do. The session description, it gives you that, but not everything is here. Not all information is in this worksheet. So don't just stop here. And this is your contact information, all of those. There is I'm gonna tell you that just by working here, don't stop. You have to go and check the additional resources because it gives you more information. So I'm gonna share again. Let me do a new share. So if you're looking at this, here are additional resources, for example. And let me do this and share that again, just because. Are you seeing that?
Yes.
Okay. So this, for example, the title, it actually tells you, and the good thing here is there are sample proposals. If you don't know that, you can actually look at proposals that are good proposals for dialogue, for panel. I was going to show you a specific proposal that was good, but then I realized they do have so many samples out here that you can check out just so you know. And here are instructions. Instructions for the title, the abstract, capitalization, no exclamation or question mark, so you know what kind of what title or what words you want to put in there, and the abstract. So these are more specific information on what you should be doing. So don't just stick to that worksheet, because all these, and look at the citations. Somebody asked about that. This year, you can include citations referenced in the summary, but it's in a separate field. So it's not counted. Your works cited list will not be counted for the 300, but your in-text citation is important. The very big thing in session description, just so you know, is never include your name or even your institution's name. That itself, you're disqualified. We won't even score we just put disqualification, and I will show you when that based on the rubric. Are there questions in this? No? So that is really important. So all these, if you have not submitted a proposal before, do check out all these additional resources. Don't forget to do all that, because it does give you a lot more information. And these are the PCIs that Lynn and Ethel were talking about, which were the 4 to 5 time slot workshops. And that's a different proposal. We're not looking at that because the strands are not involved in reviewing those proposals. Oh, can we go back to the slide?
Yes.
So take note, if there's anything that you'll get, the factors that affect the review when reviewers are, there's a big thing in the rubric. It starts with, your proposal is disqualified for the following reasons. And the first one is when your presenters, your names, and the name of your institution is identified in the description. If we see it anywhere, it's automatically disqualified. It will not be scored. Second, when you submit it to multiple strands, then it will be disqualified. Same proposal, multiple strands. When it promotes commercial interest, when we feel like you're selling something to the audience, then a proposal contains plagiarized material. And I think those are the disqualification criteria for disqualification. There are other things that we look at. If you submit it to the wrong strand, it doesn't mean it's disqualified. We just have to say submit it to the wrong strand, and then it goes to TPC. We do put a recommendation as coordinators. We say, oh, I think it should be teacher education strand, not ours. So it goes there. They have to give it to the other people. So you don't want that because it wastes time for your proposal to be reviewed. Then the other one is proposal addresses sensitive issues and requires further review. A lot of times there's all these sensitive racial issues and all other issues that reviewers are trained on. We do a lot of training to look at that in the writing. And so if it does that, we kick it and then it goes to CPC and the other higher body, they're going to look at your proposal. And recuse from reviewing, let's say that, oh, this proposal, I know this person, she's a good friend of mine, I sit next to her, I don't want to review this. It just goes to the strand coordinator. And no worries about that because the strand coordinator will just give it to a different reviewer. And if it's yours, of course, then that's different. Here's other notes, factors that affect proposal selection. So the first one really is we look at your score. So those are the sort of, didn't want to use that language, but I guess we forgot to save the new language.
Yeah.
The average score, because that's what we look at. So all our proposals of 200, you get a perfect score of 24. So Liz and I would probably do, let's do 22 up. So we just get all the 22 up, proposals. And sometimes that's a lot. And then we go 23 up, maybe, so, and then from then we select for space balance. That's very important. We get all the proposals with high, average, and then there's space balance. And what does that involve? One, it's the number of presentations on similar topics. Yeah, then we have to balance. If there are 10 and it's similar, then we have to reread, and they probably have the same score. So that's where, that's the bulk of the time for coordinators and assistant strand coordinators, because it's really time consuming to make sure that we're picking, because it's hard. It's hard not, to pick everybody, allowed to pick everybody. And then geographic and professional distribution of presenters. So we do want a mixture of, North Americans and, Asia, all different continents if we can. And then C is range of topics. We look at your settings and your focus. We make sure we have a good distribution of AEP and secondary and primary and adult ed. We have to have all those for our strand. And then balance of session types. Note this, what's your tip is the poster and the teaching tip. Those are the two that you might want to do because we can accept more of those types of presentations. And then, of course, the number of slot time. We're given a time limit that we have to look at as coordinators. So it's really tough to decide and make that decision. So our message to you is it's not personal.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can get rejected, but your proposal was really, really good. But there were the same proposals that got 24. And so we just had to pick.
And so we're coming close to the end now, but we hope that as a result of being here with us today, that you are better prepared to avoid rejection of your proposal, at least not automatic rejection. We know that you know how to write a proposal now. We hope that you understand what you need to do in order to get ready for the TESOL convention and for putting in your proposal. And we definitely hope that you are on your way to having your proposal accepted for TESOL 2023. We're really looking forward to seeing those come in. We've included the link to the call for proposals, and I believe Shirlaine has said we'll be able to share our slides and make them available. And I think we might have just a few moments for some questions. How do we want to handle those questions? Should we have you write your question in chat and then we can try and respond to those?
We can actually have people ask questions too. Lynn can handle those.
Okay, or maybe put your hand up. Lynn, I see your hand.
Well, I'm just going to read off a couple of the questions from the Facebook feed. There's one in particular that looked like it might be one that a lot of people might have. It says it's from Gulnoro, and they ask, is it okay to write the proposal in bullet points?
That's really a good question.
Yeah, I think it's maybe not as strong as having it written out in prose. Again, we're looking at, this is a convention of communicators, right? English teachers. I think we want to see that you're a decent writer as well as a thinker. And so if you're putting in a proposal for a poster session, you might start with a paragraph of description of what you want to cover, and then your bullet points are, these are the points that will be on my poster. That shows us a visual picture, or we're able to imagine what that would look like visually. In that case, it might be okay to include some bullet points in your proposal, but I would write it out in the main ideas out in prose form. Shirlaine, would you agree with that?
I agree totally with Ethel. We've had that before. The ones with bullet points, most of the reviewers, they want a coherent paragraph that really shows clear and smooth transitions from the ideas that you want to present, because it also shows what kind of presenter you are. if you're a bullet point type of person giving us proposals, like, are you a bullet point type presenter? You know, so it's that really counts. You need to just give us a unified, coherent proposal.
Yes.
Great, thank you. I've highlighted the point in this presentation for the answer to be found. Does anybody else have a hand up?
There were questions about the virtual. I have a question about the virtual and the face-to-face, because we have many people in our audience today who might be first-time presenters or early in their career presenters. And I wanted to know, do we know anything? I know that I haven't done strand review in a long time, but I believe that things have changed because the face-to-face conference is so small compared to the past, and the virtual is big and huge, and it creates all kinds of new opportunities, particularly for our audience here, first timers. Shirlaine, I know you're guessing, Shirlaine and Ethel, please don't feel like we think you're the boss on all this.
Right.
We will do more research, but do you know anything about that? How that's
Not at this time. I'm not. That's because when I also was a strand coordinator, we didn't have that virtual. I was strand coordinator for the Denver, and that's when we decided to do a virtual. So we had to all of a sudden say, can you do a virtual? So we had to do all our presenters asked to do a virtual. And then after that, maybe that last session, they would have a separate
meeting
where they'd be asked if they'd be willing to do a virtual presentation. And I don't know if
What I would say, I'm not an expert on the virtual piece either, but I from my experience at just attending the convention this last time, and hearing other people's comments about the virtual presentations, I think it would be important in your proposal to indicate how you, if you're proposing something for the virtual conference, make sure that you indicate how you will present things virtually. In a virtual world, it's not only auditory, it's also visual. And so how will you interact as a presenter with the virtual world? A virtual presentation is not just submitting a set of PowerPoint slides, right? It's a presentation. And so it includes you interacting with those slides, how you so again, you're going to be limited to your 300 word count, right, in your description, but you want to show make an indication that you are someone who is capable. And it's not that you say I'm capable, but that you show through the way you describe your presentation, describe your session, that you are capable of interacting in that kind of a hybrid setting.
the site actually has a virtual component to it. It says there are just these session types, presentation only, 30-minute pre-recorded with 1 to 4 presenters. And then the presentation with Q&A, 30-minute pre-recorded session with 15-minute Q&A, text Q&A. And then teaching tip, 20-minute pre-recorded session, 1 to 2 presenters, and poster session, 20-minute pre-recorded session, and PDF poster file, 1 to 2 presenters. So those are the 3 types of presentations that they will do for the virtual proposal.
At this past convention, we had some sessions where there was someone joining remotely or someone who had pre-recorded a presentation, and then there was someone in the room in person that was able to sort of moderate the interactions with the audience. If that's a format that you like, I would put that into your proposal to the extent that you can predict, 1 year ahead, who's going to be available, but that might be the format that you would use. Lena, I see your hand has been up. Thank you for your patience.
Sure, thanks. Sorry if I cut out, my internet connection isn't great, so just let me know if you can't hear me, and then I'll type my question.
We can hear you.
So I was curious about citing sources. So I'm planning to submit a proposal that's more practice oriented and career focused. rather than based on theory and research.
Right.
So I guess my question is, I understand that sources are technically,
Yep, she's.
how optional are they really?
Well, I would say you want to show that you're aware of current trends in the field in
Mhm.
some way. And so maybe you're making reference to to TESOL's website, something that's on the TESOL page,
Okay.
right? Or to an organization that is, or an article that has been written on doing something similar to what you are doing. You want to show how what you're proposing builds on the work that has been already done in the field. Or maybe how is it new? Maybe it's a contrast.
Okay,
Lena-
that makes sense.
Lena, the work cited is optional. It's just that at the end, you will list all of the ones that you have for in-text citation. But mentioning research and doing in-text citation within your description is mandatory, I would say. We look at that because there's a specific rubric that says that. And if you don't have that, you can get 0 out of 4 or 1 out of 4. You have to mention research. And like Ethel said, it might be brand new, but there's something general information, about it. It's almost like when Liz was doing the book where there's nothing that was done about career path development and she had to develop something. But just to a more general information maybe that touches your topic. So at least you know that you're looking at research, you're looking at professional information and out there.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you very much.
I know we're coming close to the end of our hour if we haven't run over, but Karanjit, you've had your hand up very patiently.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So may I ask my question now? Thank you, Liz. Actually, my concern is about PCI that we are planning. It is a 6-hour workshop that we are planning. So I was asking, is there a different rubric that we have to follow for PCI?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So maybe there will be some orientation workshop like this for PCI also. Can we expect such a workshop for PCI proposals also? First thing. Secondly, should we be ready and prepared to change our session time? Because in case of PCI, my whole setup will be about 6 hours or minimum 4 hours, right?
Yeah.
But should we be willing to change it to workshop session type so that we can concise the whole information into 1 hour 45 minutes, although it's nearly impossible. But still, as you said, that we should be willing to change our session type. So what do you suggest in that arena? Yeah.
So since those are separate proposal processes, review processes, I think you would not be being asked, I would guess, you probably would not be being asked to condense a 6-hour workshop down into an 1 hour and 45-minute workshop. I don't, that would, but I'm not in charge of that review process. What we're talking about in this session is only those sessions that go through the regular convention week review for the convention program.
That's great. Thank you so much. There is one question related to poster sessions. So is it recommendable that we share the graphic image of the poster that we have to present finally in the convention?
No, you would just send in the description of what you'd like to present in the poster, and then you have from the time that that's accepted, or you have to create your poster before the convention itself.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that valuable information.
Sure.
Thank you.
Great discussion. Wow.
So Liz or Linda, how are we doing on time?
We're done. Linda, go ahead.
Yeah, we're definitely there. We're at 9:04 right now. Oh, sorry, that's Tucson time. All right, so definitely 5 minutes over, but if you are willing to stay for a couple more minutes, if there are any questions, we usually stay also for a few minutes on our CPD team. But I would like to thank both of you so much, Shirlaine and Ethel. This has been one fantastic webinar and so informative and such a great fit for our CPD team. And I really think that kudos to both of you for giving us this timely information that's going to help so many people hopefully get accepted into the convention program.
Thanks for
So I have a
being
quick
such a
question,
great
Linda.
audience.